This video is brought to you guys by Max Aroma. We talk about them every single month. If you're new here, welcome to the one video we talk about Max Aroma. You probably already know about Max Aroma. You may have shopped from them before, but if you don't know about them, they're one of the best sources online for great prices on fragrances that you're probably looking for. And the thing I always say that I love the most about Max Aroma that not everyone does is that they offer this awesome decant program where you can basically get a faux leather, I think it's a 5 milliliter decant roughly, of just about every fragrance that they carry, so you don't have to go in on the full bottle right away. And I always say this, those decants are not necessarily cheap. They're definitely gonna not cost you as much money as buying the full bottle, but don't be expecting to spend like $6 on a decant of a $200 fragrance. It's gonna be a little bit more than that, but in the long run, it's gonna be way more worth it than just blind buying the bottle. So I can't recommend enough grabbing decants of these fragrances I'm gonna be sharing with you today. And this video is what it sounds like. The title explains it all. We're keeping it very simple. We're keeping it very surface level, but not superficial. There's gonna be depth here, and that really comes through the fragrances I've chosen for this topic. And that topic is the best all season alluring evening time fragrances for men. I wanted to choose fragrances that have some freshness and maybe some warmer depth. It could be sweetness, it could be an overtly woody quality, or something that is maybe a little bit contradictory to freshness, but they work together in a beautiful way, and each of these 8 fragrances does it differently from the others. Every fragrance I talk about will be linked in the description at Max Aroma. Once again, you can grab decants of the ones you're interested in, so how about we dive right into it? In no particular order, first one up here is from the house of Guerlain. It's their L'Homme Ideal Eau de Toilette. If I'm not mistaken, this came out in 2014. To this day, this is still a hallmark mainstream men's fragrance. There were a few fragrances around this time and a little bit beyond that were doing a beautiful thing, which was bringing a slightly gourmand facet to the masculine fragrance sphere. Not that it hadn't been done before, but this was a beautiful modern take on that approach. And I think to this day, it stands as a timeless classic fragrance DNA that has spawned beautiful flankers. And it's based around almond, bitter almond, which is kind of a creamy nuttiness with tonka bean, so it almost comes together as this cherry feel, this sweet kind of creamy cherry vibe, but there's some woods, maybe some leather, maybe a little bit of a freshness like citrus or something. It's transparent while still having a richness and a sweetness, but this nice masculine woody depth that is very attractive. It is just classy, but it's also, again, alluring. Perfect for an evening out, really any time of the year. Even though it is a slightly sweeter profile, I think it kind of shines on the warmer evenings, summer evenings, maybe early fall evenings or late spring evenings. It really shines when there's a little bit of heat still in the air. That is L'Homme Ideal Eau de Toilette. Let me know what you think. This fragrance is new to my collection from the House of Precious Liquid. I had no idea that this existed, and this is a beautiful scent profile that, again, I had never heard about until I saw it on Max Aroma. Sangria Oak. And as per the name, Sangria is the upfront ingredient. Have you ever smelled a fragrance that uses sangria? Honestly, I had never even conceived of it before I tried this fragrance, but all in all, it smells like a combination of 2 fragrances that you might know, but ironically enough, as that combination comes together, it does smell like its own thing as a result. To me, to my nose, it reminds me of a mix of Chris Collins' African Rooibos with a little bit of side effect from Initio. I get this red smelling, mouth-watering, almost citrusy, wet feeling scent profile that's a little fruity and a little bit sweet, but not overly sweet. And I think that's the sangria. And for some reason, it comes off just a little bit herbal to me. And mixed with this slightly warm, sweet vanilla booziness, it just has these nuances of both, and it comes together in its own way that smells beautiful on the skin. I love the woodiness as it dries. The oak really does come to the forefront as it dries on the skin, and it just behaves as a unique and interesting and definitely alluring scent profile to wear outside in the evening time when the sun's going down. Maybe you're sitting out on a nice patio having dinner, hanging out with friends, whatever it is. Something that's easy to get next to, but again, very intriguing. That is Sangria Oak from Precious Liquid. We got an old favorite from me. I have loved this ever since I first tried it when it came out, which I think was back in 2021. A great follow-up to an unfortunately discontinued legendary fragrance from the house of Kilian. This is Apple Brandy on the Rocks. I love this stuff. Now, the one thing to not necessarily expect from this is a bunch of brandy. This is not an overly boozy fragrance. I get a little bit of this ice cooling freshness that is this on the rocks vibe, whatever molecule that they use. I think it's Sidonie Lanceur who perfumed this, and she maybe has this approach with other Kilians that have this cooling effect like vodka on the rocks, like Blue Moon Ginger Dash. But with that, you do get this kind of crisp apple. It's like fresh, crisp, juicy, like fall apple. And again, I don't really get a lot of booze here. I get a lot of woods, like wooden barrel, like cedar wood barrel that you pour this kind of concoction into with this cooling apple wet feel, but again, not overtly boozy or whiskey or brandy or anything like that. But I like it. It has this kind of sexy flair to it while not screaming, while not being super rambunctious, super noticeable. It smells of quality and it smells interesting. It definitely smells niche, but it's very easy to understand. And I just think it's alluring, especially for the nighttime, any time of the year. That is Apple Brandy on the Rocks from Kilian. From Dusita, admittedly the only fragrance I own from the brand, but this one blew me away when I first tried it. This is called Pelagos, one of their newer fragrances, but not the newest. It came out in 2024, and again, really caught me by surprise when I first got my nose on it. This is for the iris lovers, but more orris fruit, less floral, powdery. It's not really that. It's more rooty, earthy, starchy. Again, the root, and maybe a little bit smooth and buttery. But you have this like cypress or something green and ocean-like. It's almost like cypress trees by the ocean, and there's like orris fruit, and it's just a beautiful concoction. The woodiness here is just so alluring off the skin. Not really an ounce of sweetness in this one. It is more woody, orris root, green cypress depth, but with this kind of light breezy saltiness that just perfect and so different. You're not going to smell like anything else. The only thing that I would say makes this a little bit harder to approach is maybe its potency. When something is weird and fairly strong, that is what can make it off-putting. So be mindful of that. It might smell a little much to you when you first get it. You spray it on your hand. Be careful not to just shove it up your nose. But it is in no way challenging or stinky or anything like that. It just may not really smell like much of what you've tried unless you've tried a bunch of very heavy orris root forward fragrances. Nonetheless, alluring stuff for the evening. Let me know if you've tried Pelagos from Dusita. From Tom Ford, man, I love this stuff. Didn't always love it. The first time I tried it, wasn't for me. It was a little bit transportive. It reminded me of a beautiful scene. It was very artistic, but I couldn't see myself wearing it. I came back around to it later, got a bottle of it, loved it. They discontinued that, and then they re-released it in this form. This is Oud Minerale, and this form is, I would say, a little bit more accessible, a little bit more easy on the nose, less abrasive than the previous versions of it, but it is a lovely woody aquatic. It is dry, smoky, like driftwood. I don't get necessarily straight up oud out of here. I do get this, like, again, driftwood, salty, kind of brooding, stormy ocean kind of vibe here. It's not bright, sunny, watery kind of stuff. No, this is a little bit more serious than that. There's a little bit of a green quality in there, maybe like a kelpie or a seaweed feel. The freshness here is just so enigmatic. There's a mysterious quality to this, and I think that's what makes it alluring. On paper, you would look at it and be like, how is this an alluring fragrance? It just seems like you're gonna smell like the ocean, but something about that smokiness with the freshness, with the complete devoid of sweetness, the woods and the aquatics perfectly balanced. It's a dark aquatic, and it just goes so great with the nighttime if you want something that really just doesn't smell like anything people have smelled before. Just don't overspray it, otherwise you're gonna smell like a rotting fish yard. Tom Ford Oud Minerale, let me know what you think. We got another new one to me. This is brand new to my collection from the Merchant of Venice, and honestly, I haven't been the greatest fan of this brand. I've tried a few of their fragrances in the past, and they were just okay. They were good, they were pleasant, maybe even borderline interesting, but something about them fell flat. This is the first one I've tried where I'm like, this has my interest. I want to get to know it better. I love to smell through it as it's developing, and it doesn't smell exactly like anything else I have or have tried, so my interest is piqued on this one, and it might be for you as well. Gold Regatta. Technically a unisex fragrance, as with a few of these, but I think the woodiness makes it lean a little bit more masculine. When I first sprayed it, I didn't bring it up to my nose. The first thing I got was, okay, I get woods, I get salt, and something kind of marine-like, but I also get vanilla. And it was very gourmand. And I was like, okay, let's see how it goes, because it was making it feel a little bit too feminine for me. But after like a minute or so, I'm like, no, this is This is deep. It's not all that crazy complex, but there's a beautiful depth here. You do get a little bit of fig when you first spray it on, kind of juicy, a little sweet, but the sweetness mainly comes from the vanilla. If you're asking me, there's technically red algae in here, which I have no real experience with. Maybe that's what gives it this aquatic feel that is oceanic in a way. There's a saltiness behind that. And yes, you do get the vanilla. And I think the salt and the vanilla working together with the marine vibe, it's such an interesting mix. I do find myself liking aquatic gourmands the times that I've tried them. One that comes to mind is New York Nights from Bond Number 9. One of the few fragrances from that house that I really like because it's fairly unique. It's just a little bit synthetic. This kind of reminds me of that. I think that one has some coffee in it. I don't get coffee in here. Kind of in that vein, but just way more natural, more smooth, more dimensional. I love the woodiness really starts to come out more and more as it dries. It stays a little bit sweet, but the salty vanilla kind of goes to the background. Gourmand fast, it takes a back seat. I haven't given it a full wearing. I just have been spending time with it on my hand for the past few hours and just really loving the wafts I'm getting. So I will be wearing this myself for evenings all throughout the year. I'd love to know what you think if you've tried it. I don't see many people talking about it, so let me know down in the comments. I recently did a video all about my entire Roja Parfum collection, and I touted this one as my #1, and it is still currently my favorite Roja in my collection. I think a lot of you guys feel the same way about it, maybe with your collections if you have a few of their fragrances. It's just that good. This is Burlington 1819, and it is such a special, luxurious, classy, and alluring take on a citrus forward fragrance. Lots of grapefruit, a little bit spicy from cumin, and that might rub some people the wrong way if you spray too much of it, or if you're really sensitive to cumin. Yes, it can have this slightly edgy body odor feel, but I just don't really get it myself in a off-putting way. I can objectively smell it and be like, yeah, I see why it would smell that way, but to me contributes to the scent profile. It's kind of this ambery, warm, dripping, boozy, citrusy, spicy fragrance that is both bright and a little bit dark. Just the way that it sits on the skin, the way that it behaves as it dries on the skin, it just is so classy. It just smells kind of wealthy. That's just the best way I can describe it. It's also quite expensive, so it does smell like you get what you pay for. I would not recommend blind buying a bottle of this because even though I'm speaking its praises, even though it is my favorite from the house right now, it's not a safe blind buy. You may not love it. I'm just warning you. If you want a little bit more of a tangible frame of reference, think of Vibrato from Sospiro, but less musky and just with this warm ambery element underneath the citrus, and just maybe a little bit more interesting, a little bit more complex, more moving parts, just more dimensional, I would say. I like this a whole lot more than Vibrato. But if you know that fragrance, that's like kind of the membrane of Burlington, and Burlington just has a little bit more in the core of the scent. Nonetheless, let me know what you think if you're a big fan of this one like me, or even if you don't like it. All is fair. Let me know in the comments. Final fragrance, one of my favorites from the house of Amouage. I've loved this ever since it came out in 2020. It was love at first sniff. It still puzzles me how some people absolutely hate this fragrance, saying that it just smells like toothpaste in an ashtray. I don't get that vibe at all. To me, this is so unique. It's such a beautiful blend and duality of elements, cooling, fresh, and warm. It's so cohesive, beautiful performance. So if you want that nice sillage, this has it. Enclave. Enclave is one of those fragrances in my collection where every time I spray it on, I never regret it. And I don't mean like I regret most of my fragrances, but sometimes I'll put on a fragrance I love and then I'll immediately think about another fragrance I could have worn. This never happens with Enclave. I put it on, my mind is closed, and I'm focused on it and loving it, and I move on with the day and I don't even give it a second thought. That's how much I love this fragrance. That's how much it resonates with me. It is a cooling mint. It's like a peppermint, but with like cardamom. Cooling, fresh, spicy. It's kind of invigorating, but it's not ultimately super fresh, as in like transparent. There's a lot going on here. There's a richness. I think there's labdanum, which brings this kind of sticky, warm, ambery feel. Maybe a little bit of a slightly ashy leather or wood or something underneath that can come off a little bit smoky, but not overly so. And it just dries in this very interesting way. It has a great development. It keeps the interest and it changes as it dries on the skin, and it lasts a good while. Again, has some good sillage if you want to be noticed. This is a great way to do that. Super alluring, super classy, great for evenings all year round, whether it's a little bit warm, whether it's cold. it shines. Let me know what you think of Enclave if you're a fan.